Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Steve Van Tassel here for Dynasty Owner, and we are going to be talking about Week 5. It's unbelievable. We are already at Week 5. We're just under a quarter of the way through the NFL season. With 16 games, we used to be able to say quarter, half. Now it's 17 games. There's none of that. You can't say anything. It's like, we're going to be 28.6% through the season now, or some silliness like that. But anyways, sorry, that's kind of distracting, me saying that, which is kind of the idea behind my video and article for the week. We're calling this distractions for my Week 5 preview. And distractions, they happen. They happen to everybody. I work from home. I get distracted all the time by things going on here. But if you're an NFL player, it's got to be hard because, while I work 5 days a week, 260 days a year, they work a lot, but their work is condensed into 17 games. I know they practice and work out and things like that, but unfortunately what they're measured on in reality are 17 separate games a year. And so being distracted during one of them kind of it could be very impactful. For example, I feel like last week, Tom Brady was kind of a little bit distracted about what was going on before the game, meeting with Robert Kraft, the Patriots fans, and everything like that. And shockingly, I thought that he would kind of come into Foxborough and just kind of throw 4 touchdowns, 350 yards, and beat the Patriots senseless. But the Patriots held their own, and I wonder if it had something to do with Brady being a little bit distracted during the game with everything that was going on. And the reason why I bring this up in Week 5, that was Week 4, Week 5, we've got the situation with Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is kind of a little strange, very distracting if you're a Jacksonville Jaguar player. You probably want to be focusing on the game, trying to get your first win of the season. And instead, you're talking about your coach kind of doing strange things with people that he shouldn't be doing. And management being upset with him means that he has to go to meetings about these things, and it takes away from their preparation for the game that they have upcoming. So the other thing that could be distracting about Week 5 is, I think, with the Falcons and the Jets having to travel to London, I know teams have been doing it for a while. I have had all these overseas games. They didn't have any last year because of COVID, but they've had them for the past couple of years. But still, it's got to be a little bit distracting to have to go all that way. I'm sure they do special things for the game. They have to play it. They played it what is effectively 9:30 in the morning, U.S. East Coast time. So it's got to be at least a little bit distracting to those guys and stuff like that. So, enough of the distractions. Let's kind of get into talking about the game. Let's talk about this week's games. And matchups and everything. So let's go to the presentation here, our Week 5 preview. And the first thing we do is that these guys should be in your starting lineup this week. So these are guys who more likely than not are on most people's benches or even the practice squad, but I think that they should be in your starting lineup this week. They're going to perform well this week. Last week, I had these 4 recommendations. I had Taylor Heineke from the football team, Trey Sermon from the 49ers, Olamide Zaccheaus, I forgot how to pronounce his name in the last week, from the Falcons, and Tommy Tremble from Carolina as my recommended starters. And the results were not very good. Heineke did great. He was like the QB5 for the week with 36.8 Dynasty Owner fantasy points, but everybody else was bad recommendations. Trey Sermon wasn't horrendous, as he had 8.9 Dynasty Owner fantasy points, but that still ranked him well out of the top 24 running backs for the week. And there's nothing else I can say about the other two. Those were just really bad choices. So let's try to do better with Week 5. So now we've got the Week 5 starting recommendations. And the first person I'm recommending, who's probably on most people's Dynasty Owner bench, is Jacoby Brissett from the Miami Dolphins. And I think part of the reason is that I really watched the Patriots game against the Buccaneers. And what I saw out there was I saw Richard Sherman being picked on like as much as possible by the Patriots, and they should have done it probably more. And he gave up 8 8 times they threw at the guy he was supposedly guarding. And all 8 times the receiver caught the pass, and that was for 98 yards. And so I think that Brissett's got players who can kind of exploit this matchup. He's got Jalen Waddle there and Mike Gesicki at tight end. And I think that that's just going to be something that if Miami and their coaches pay attention, and Brissett can do the same thing as Mac Jones did last week, plus add in the rushing that he's can do that Jones doesn't do, I think this could set up to be a very nice week for Jacoby Brissett, and you should have him in your lineup. The second person is Damien Harris from the New England Patriots. I mean, the Patriots play Houston. Houston has a terrible run defense. They're allowing 114 yards per game to running backs. That's just running backs. And they're allowing 5 yards per rushing attempt. Harris is pretty far outside the top 24. I think he's about 31 right now. But he had 2 good games, and then he had 2 good games where he just wasn't part of the Patriots game plan at all. The last 2 weeks, he's had 10 rushing attempts for 10 yards, whereas in the previous 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, he had 100 rushing yards against Miami and 62 plus a rushing touchdown against the Jets. I think he's back to week 1 and 2 Damien Harris, and therefore should be in your starting lineup. The third guy is somebody who, as I said before, might be distracted. Laviska Shenault. But, he's going to be distracted because of Urban Meyer's problems. But the reason why he's on this list is just simply the potential to have a good game because DJ Chark is out for the year. Chark got injured last week, and Shenault had his best game of the season. He had 17 Dynasty Owner fantasy points. And the last time that Chark was out for an entire week was week 17 of the 2020 season. And Shenault had 24.6 Dynasty Owner fantasy points in that game. So I think having Chark out means Trevor Lawrence is going to look for Shenault more, and he's going to produce. And right now he's the wide receiver 51 in Dynasty Owner, despite having a very high ADP of 82, making him, basically like a 7th round pick. But I think he's going to perform more like that pick that you made as opposed to how he's done the first 4 games of the season, and should be in your lineup. And the last guy is Hayden Hurst from the Falcons. Again, somebody talked about being distracted maybe, but that distraction is kind of overtaken by the fact that Atlanta just doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. I mean, Matt Ryan's going to throw the ball. Cordarrelle Patterson's probably going to get some catches. Kyle Pitts is probably going to get a lot of targets. But kind of similar to a couple of weeks ago when I recommended Austin Hooper, I think the second tight end here, Hayden Hurst, is also going to get a lot of targets because, I'm not sure many people can name the 3 starting wide receivers right now for the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, I had to actually look up their depth chart because I wasn't sure who in the world was the third receiver. I knew Tajay Sharp and I knew Olamide Zaccheaus, but I didn't realize that Christian Blake was their other starter, supposedly this week. We'll see what happens when they line up at 9:30 in the morning, but that's the idea. But the whole idea is that Matt Ryan's going to have to throw the ball to somebody, and it probably should be Hurst. I mean, Hurst was the tight end 9 last year in Dynasty Owner, so he's not bad. They have Kyle Pitts now, and they don't use him as much. But I think this is a week they will use him, and he's going to have a good week, so he should be in your Dynasty Owner starting lineup. So now we move on to the second part, which is the guys who should be on your bench or, God forbid, even your practice squad this week. And as usual, first thing we do is look at our week 4 bench recap. And I had some big names here, actually. Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, Marquise Hollywood-Brown, and Dalton Schultz as people I recommended sitting on your bench last week. And 3 of those were bad. Lamar was just okay. Yeah, we're just going to do this. Nothing to see here. That's all. That's the best I got for this right now is this. So let's move on. Here's my week 5 bench recommendations. First is Daniel Jones, who's the QB9 right now in Dynasty Owner, but something's going to happen. He's not going to perform well through the entire season. And I think Dallas, who has been playing well on defense, I think that's the team that's going to trip him up. He hasn't played well when he's played the Cowboys before, and he's had 3 starts against Dallas, and he's averaging 13.8 dynasty owner fantasy points per game, per those games. I mean, his best one was 19.1 in week 17 last year, but none of those come close to what he's averaging right now, which is almost 28 and a half points a game. And I just think if he's gonna have a bad game, I think it's gonna be this week. So I'd have him on my bench if I owned him in any leagues. Next is James Conner from Arizona. And it's kind of along the same lines. I mean, he's rushed for 2 touchdowns in each of the past 2 games. That can't happen again. It's just almost impossible. And while he's technically the running back 26 with injuries and guys being out, he's probably a low-end RB2 this week. But, I mean, he's going to run the ball, but running backs don't really run the ball very well on very well against the 49ers. Apologize. Couldn't remember who they were playing. They're playing the 49ers, and I have stats here. I mean, the 49ers are only allowing 3.9 yards per carry to running backs. If you look at the stats, their overall stats, it's a little bit higher, but a lot of that yardage have come against been quarterbacks and other players running against them. So Conner doesn't do much in the passing game. He's relying on the run. He's averaging 3 yards per carry. He's really only been a quality starter the last 2 weeks because of those 2 touchdowns. And I just think he's right for a game where he doesn't get a touchdown and gets under 10 dynasty owner fantasy points, and therefore should be on your bench. The next guy is Brandon Cooks, wide receiver for Houston. And you can just kind of repeat what I said in week 2 about Corey Davis on the Jets. Bill Belichick rookie quarterbacks have a hard time playing against Bill Belichick defenses. Bill Belichick likes to take away the best player on the opposing team, which is clearly Cooks. Davis Mills had a terrible week last week. I'm not sure he's going to be any better this week. And if it's just like Wilson and Corey Davis a couple of weeks ago, I mean, Corey Davis had 2.8 dynasty owner fantasy points. Now, Cooks might get a little bit more than that, but I don't think he's going to get enough to be worthy of being in your starting lineup. And the last person here is George Kittle. He's a little banged up, and he's got a rookie going at quarterback in Trey Lance for him. And the thing is I looked at the game last week when Lance played the second half, and Kittle was only targeted 3 times, and there were 0 completions. You know, I know it's not a huge sample size, but in contrast, Deebo Samuel was targeted 7 times in the second half by Lance, had 4 completions for 107 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So it seems that Lance might have a little bit of more of a connection with Samuel than with Kittle. And the other part is that, unlike a couple of years ago, the Arizona defense is very good against tight ends. I remember a couple of years ago, every week I was just recommending starting whoever was playing Arizona because they were just awful against tight ends. But now they're only allowed 22.3 dynasty owner fantasy points over 4 weeks against tight ends. And so that average is well below being a starter. I mean, it's barely bench worthy. And I think that's kind of where Kittle's going to be. I mean, he hasn't been great so far this year. He's like tight end 11 right now in dynasty owner. And so, you know, he's not an automatic starter right now, the way he's playing. So I think it's the week kind of that you leave George on your bench. And finally, we're going to talk about our dynasty owner matchup of the week. And this one is an interesting one. It's the first one that I've done where we talk about a new league. It's League 59074. But the teams are teams you may have heard before. The Miami Crypt Keepers. If you've been following the Chase for the Ring, you've seen that name. And actually, it's in this league that team was in 11th at the start of the week. I think they've slipped a little bit after the Thursday night games. But they're in 11th place in the Chase for the Ring, or we're in 11th place in the Chase for the Ring. But they're facing another undefeated team in the Underdogs. I guess the Browns fans, their logo, it may be hard to see it, but their logo is the Browns 75th anniversary logo. And you know, they're Underdogs this week. The Crypt Keepers are supposed to win by about 14 points. But interestingly, the teams look very evenly matched, except for at tight end. Tight end is where the Crypt Keepers have a huge advantage because they have Travis Kelce, where the underdogs have Jared Cook. But other than that, if somebody from the underdogs kind of has a great week or somebody from the Crypt Keepers doesn't, this matchup could probably go either way. I mean, both teams are 4-0. They have other good teams in their league. They have a couple of other teams who I list in the article that you should check out, who have actually been in the chase for the ring this year so far. There are teams in other leagues, but still good owners. So good owners probably pick good teams in other leagues. So I expect that this is going to be a very competitive league. And whoever wins this matchup is going to be the only undefeated team in the league and have a big advantage coming into hopefully into the Dynasty Owner playoffs. Believe it or not, we're kind of talking about playoffs because this is week 5 and we have 14 weeks of the Dynasty Owner season. So it's coming up pretty soon. But, don't get distracted by the fact that the playoffs are coming up. I know it's easy to do, but don't do that. Keep going. Keep focusing on things. Don't get distracted by reading too much stuff. I feel like people may have gotten a little bit distracted this week by all the talk about how Robert Woods wasn't doing so well and, Cooper Kupp was exceeding him and all this stuff. And then Woods goes out and has a great game on Thursday night. And I bet a lot of people had Woods on their Dynasty on their bench and in other leagues didn't start him, which was a huge mistake. So anyways, so that's it. We're done. I'm not distracted anymore. I was actually able to focus, except for that little blip, couldn't remember what team the 49ers were playing, or Arizona was playing actually, which is funny because later on I knew what team. But anyways, so don't get distracted. If you're watching this video, hopefully you've been focused on it. You've listened. If you've read the article, hopefully you're able to do that without distraction. If you don't mind, we'd love it if you would hit the like button. It helps us in many ways, and we would appreciate it. Make sure to check out the rest of the articles for the week and videos for the week of Dynasty Owner. Monday, Jay Pounds is going to be here doing his Monday Night Football preview. Then Tuesday, I'll be recapping the week, telling you who should have been in your lineup and who shouldn't have been in your lineup. And Jay will be back. Jay will be here to tell you who to pick up, who you should be picking up or targeting in the free agent auction for week 6. Then Matt the Jerk's here on Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, he's going to keep going with the incredible statistics, incredible facts, statistics that he's been talking about. I think he's doing wide receivers this week. And then Thursday, he'll get week 6 started by previewing Thursday Night Football and picking his value of the game. Please make sure to follow all of us on Twitter. I'm at SteveET33, Matt's at Dynasty Jerk, and Jay is at JPoundsNFL. Also follow Dynasty Owner, which is Dynasty_Owner. And, make sure you watch the live stream on Wednesday with me, Tim, and cousin Justin, who talks about injuries, which is always a lot of fun and very informative. It's a great addition to Dynasty Owner to have his expertise in injuries and physical therapy to talk about what these injuries mean, as opposed to just listening to what the team says. Questionable, doubtful, and out are one thing, but cousin Justin can add some texture to that based on practice reports and things. So it's great to hear him. Please watch. Please, again, hit the like button. Follow us all on Twitter. Watch the videos. Set your reminders so that you catch the live streams on Wednesday and Thursday. And I'll be back again next week. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye.